Hello, my name is Scott Weisenbaker. Now, if you're watching this video, you may be in jail, you may have just got out of jail, or you could be connected to somebody who's currently in jail or just got out of jail. And if that charge has to do with drugs and alcohol, then I can offer you some help. Now, as far as an addiction goes, and a lot of people have trouble saying they have an addiction or thinking of their family member as having an addiction, but this is what I want you to think about. If you don't know anything else about an addiction, this is the one thing that I want you to know. The drug or the alcohol is the greatest coping mechanism that we have ever had before. You see, the American culture loves alcohol. We celebrate with it. That's weddings, sporting events. Sometimes when we're sad when somebody's died or there's been a divorce or we got fired or for whatever reason. Alcohol is a social lubricant in our country, and for the majority of the population, there's absolutely no trouble with that. But the trouble falls when there's those of us who, once we start drinking or using, we don't stop until we run out, pass out, or get arrested. Now, every once in a while we can be in our best behavior and we can pull off an event or maybe stay clean for a little while, but we always tend to return to our bad habits. So if we think about this as a coping mechanism, then when we get really sad or we're celebrating or whatever's happening and we get very drunk or very high, then whatever we're going through, whether it's good or bad, it seems to go easier. In other words, if I walk out of the jail and my whole life falls apart, because as I'm walking out I think, this has been really unfortunate, but everything's going to be fine now, I'm out. But then my job is gone. Maybe the relationship is gone. Maybe there's a lot of trouble that I didn't anticipate. And when all of that starts stacking up, we get stressed out. And when we get stressed out enough, if we get drunk or high enough, we just don't care. Now, if the person that is watching this or the person that you're connected to has been to jail many times or maybe had many scrapes with drugs or alcohol, then we start seeing this pattern emerge. And now maybe it's not that we get out and the job's gone, because we kind of know the job's going to be gone, and we probably assume the relationship has probably had just about enough. But we start having a hard time finding where we're going to live. Maybe it's harder to get a job because nobody wants to take a chance on us because we go to jail all the time. Maybe they don't like the nature of our charges, or maybe just the fact that we've been to jail or that we're on probation or that we're on parole, that they just don't want to mess with us. And that's their right. But things become increasingly more difficult. Even if I truly don't want to use anymore because I understand that it causes all the problems that I'm dealing with, I go out of the jail, the door swings open, and the world is outside, and all the drugs and all the alcohol and all the people are still out there doing the same thing. So when I walk out, that's the world that I'm walking into. There is no safe haven from drugs and alcohol. There is no place on the planet that you can go, and there's just not going to be any kind of temptation. So we just have to forget that line of thinking and understand that the world is full of drugs and alcohol, and we have to survive out there. So if I'm trying to survive, but I can't find a place to live, or it's just becoming more and more difficult to find that place or to get that job or to try to restart that relationship for whatever reason, if I get drunk, I don't care. Here's another example. Some of us will stay clean for months because there's just fear around what might happen if we use again. But we have this pending drug charge, and so it's probably a felony pending drug charge. And if we've never been through this before, or maybe we've been through it too many times, we start to become concerned about our day in court, whether we have an attorney or not, whether it's a very high-priced attorney or an appointed attorney, they're going to tell us what we should do to prepare for court. But at the end of the day, it's us standing in front of the judge, and we start to get concerned about what that judge is going to do. In fact, sometimes we get so freaked out over what might happen at court that we just become emotionally compromised, and we're overwhelmed, and we don't know what to do. We just start freaking out. You know what? We get high enough, we don't care. We start to rationalize. Like, you know, the jails are full of people. They're letting them out faster than they ever have before. There's all these things going on in society that's probably going to let me just go back out. But the next morning, we still have to go to court. And now we're walking into the courtroom all strung out or hungover. And the first thing they do is get mad. And they say, how disrespectful that you would show up to our courtroom in the condition that you're in right now. What's the matter with you? And the only real thing that we can go say is, you know, I don't know. It's the most honest answer we have. And it's the truth unless you really understand yourself. We don't understand. I've never been able to walk up to that judge and go, well, here's the situation. I was so freaked out over what was going to happen today that I was besides myself. And I just couldn't deal. So I was either going to harm myself or I was going to get high. I decided to get high, and I made it through the night. It felt like the right decision, but now I'm starting to question myself because now my greatest fears are going to become my reality because I don't know how to say that to the judge. I don't know how to ask for help and say, you know, I was either going to get high or swallow my gun, and I need help with this. I can't. I'm afraid that I'm going to take myself out if I don't get some help. I've never heard somebody say that in court. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, well, I need treatment just as a way to get out of going to the penitentiary. But yet, that whole 8 to 12 months leading up to their court date, they didn't make any moves towards getting to treatment. You see, for so long, treatment didn't even, I didn't even consider it. I just would go to court and they would ask me, well, what are you going to do to make sure you don't use anymore? And I'm like, I'm just not going to use anymore. And that never worked. And it never will work. Our willpower, our decision to do the right thing suddenly sounds very weak when we're standing in court because they'll ask us, well, so if you don't want to use it anymore, have you been going to a 12-step program? Well, no, I haven't done that. Have you gone to treatment? No, I haven't done that. Well, how about outpatient treatment or counseling? Did you do any of that? Well, no. Did you get help at your church? No. In fact, I heard one person say, you know what? I figured if you want me to go to treatment, then you would send me to treatment. And he did. He sent him to a treatment program inside our penitentiary, which is not what he was looking for. Regardless of how insignificant or significant you feel that your charge is, what you do right now has more to do with the outcome of your case than anything else. You see, if you go to court today, chances are you're going to be found guilty for whatever you were just arrested for. And you're going to go to jail because that's where people go who are guilty after they've been arrested. But you see, the thing is, we have anywhere from 6 to 8 to 9 to 12 to possibly 18 months before we go to trial. And during that period of time, you get to start building a case about why you don't belong in jail. Because if you do nothing, then you've done nothing to change what your outcome is today. You've done nothing to change your behavior, therefore you're more than likely going to go to jail. It doesn't matter how much money you do have or how much money you don't have. It doesn't matter what kind of job you have. That if you actually take this conviction, that you're going to lose your license if you have a licensed position. And that could be, plumbing, that could be an electrician, that could be a doctor, that could be a lawyer, that could be a pilot, that could be so many different things where you need some sort of license from the state. And the licensing board says, hey, if you get a felony, you're not going to get your license anymore. Now, sometimes there's waivers that we can work through, and maybe we can get a second chance. And maybe they're going to give us a path to getting that license back. But I promise you, that path will include treatment. Treatment for an addiction. And so while we're back on addiction, let's just talk about that for a minute, because I've met so many people that will sit here and go, you know, does an alcoholic drive a car like mine? Does a drug addict have the kind of job or money that I have? Sure they do. They come in all shapes and sizes, all kinds of money, all kinds of debt. We come in just a variety of packages. So the questions that you really have to ask yourself is, have you ever really tried to stop once and for all and then found out that you couldn't by using again? Things got difficult, somebody died, somebody betrayed you, somebody just lied, somebody pissed you off, and you got high or you got drunk. Have you ever said, I'm never going to do it again, and then you did it again? Or have you ever tried to regulate the amount that you were going to take? Meaning, I know that I drink too much and I usually get in trouble, but I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to just have one drink an hour. Because if I'm eliminating one drink an hour, then I can drink one drink an hour and never get drunk, which is true. The problem is, once we start, we set off this allergic reaction if we do have the addiction, and we usually don't stop till we run out, pass out, or get arrested. As I said, every once in a while, somebody can pull a rabbit out of the hat. Another type of addiction could be in the form of binge drinking or binge using, meaning I'm not going to use for a while. Maybe months and months and months go by, but as soon as I start, I'm off to the races. Or as soon as I start drinking, again, it's until I run out, pass out, or get arrested. Something else to consider is sometimes we want to stay clean. And people give us all kinds of little hints and clues and advice on what we should do if we start feeling like we want to use. Like maybe carry a piece of paper in your pocket with a list of numbers that you can call if you get so inclined to do so. Here's the problem with that. When we decide that we're going to go to the bar, the liquor store, or the dope house, we're gone. It's almost like a wave of endorphins just rush over my body because there's something going on that has stressed me out. Now we'll call that the mental obsession. Something is freaking me out. Maybe it's just that I'm obsessing on the fact that other people can use and drink normally and I can't. So I start to obsess. The mental obsession kicks in. It kicks me up and down the block. And then I decide, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to go get high. Or I'm going to go get drunk. The moment that we make that decision, the moment that we head to the door, that's the moment that this wave just comes over us and we think everything is going to be okay. We can almost taste it. And we haven't even left our house yet. But we know that we're going to go buy some drinks. Or we're going to go score some dope. Or whatever it is we're going to do. We know that we're going. And we also understand that nothing is going to stop us. Because when somebody's made that decision, again, there could be a once in a million chance that somebody can talk somebody out of it. But typically, I will tell you my experience. Once somebody's made that decision, there is nothing but a bullet or an arresting officer that is going to stop them. Trying to guilt them into not using, trying to convince them to stay, it doesn't work. and you can't just abduct somebody to protect them from themselves. In this country, people are allowed to drink themselves to death. If they decide to use until they have an overdose or they have some other catastrophic failure within their body that kills them, other than the fact that that substance may be illegal and from time to time they may go to jail, they are allowed. See, we cannot make somebody go to treatment. We can't force somebody to make the right decisions. So some of us go to jail over and over and over. And the sad part is sometimes that just becomes a way of life. We understand that we're going to go to jail. For years and years, I was going in and out of jail. And what I was taught while I was in the jail was this little circle of recovery where it talks about considering getting well, planning to get well, starting the process of recovery, living in recovery. And then there was a funky little U-turn that said relapse. They were actually teaching us that we were going to relapse and that we were going to come back to jail. So the thought was, I'm going to go outside into the world. I know I'm going to come back to jail at some point or another because I know myself. I don't stay inside. I like to go outside. I'm going to be outside. I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to come back. So what makes you think that I would start planning for my future? Like finding the appropriate place to live and trying to build a meaningful career and know that I can put together meaningful relationships that could last for the rest of my life, knowing that I'm going to go back to jail. I'm going to try to have as much fun as I possibly can, put some money in my pocket, hook up with somebody so that maybe I've got some better stories when I go back to jail and at least enjoy myself while I'm out. But when that's how I'm thinking, I start offending almost immediately, and I'm like running back to the jail. And then we go back to the jail and we think, okay, so, yeah, everybody will tell you they hate jail. Jail sucks, nobody likes it, but yet we get used to it. We know where we stand. It makes sense. We don't have to make any decisions. We don't have to pay for anything. All responsibility falls to the wayside. And so when I'm back out in the free world and everything starts to add up and everything starts to stress me out, not only do I reach out for the drug or the alcohol, but I also, even though I would never admit it, I also kind of look forward to going back to jail. Now that sounds insane, and I probably lost the majority of the people who are watching this video. Well, he's just crazy. Well, we are a little crazy, and we do it over and over. Now, I would have swore up and down if you had talked to me at any point while I was using and drinking that, no, that's not the case. That's not the case. But once we get pulled over and we get arrested and we go through however many days it takes to get processed and put where you're going to be and you're where you're going to be, then you kind of just relax. You watch TV, you read bad books, you just are. You're just there again. And it becomes a normal part of our life. Now see, that's the tragic part. What I'm going to tell you is that you don't ever have to go back to jail again. You don't ever have to use again. And if you don't use again, then unless you're breaking some other laws, if all of your troubles are a direct result of drugs or alcohol, if you follow the directions I'm going to give you, then you don't ever have to go back to jail again. So what are those directions? It's simple. We need a recovery program. If you need to go to treatment, you need to get yourself into treatment. If you don't know about any treatment centers, you can look online and you can find some. You can go to SAMHSA. SAMHSA will have a listing of treatment centers that you can go to. In whatever state you reside, you can go to their website and you can find out who are the licensed treatment providers in my state. You see, I'm in North Texas. I have a treatment center. I am licensed with the state of Texas. You can find me through SAMHSA. You can find me through the state of Texas. You can go online and you can find me that way. However, going online may be the easiest way to find a bunch of results for different treatment centers. But just let me warn you, the very best website, the person who spent the most money to be the first search result or one of the ads, it doesn't mean that it's the best treatment center. If you don't have any money and you don't have insurance, or you don't have good insurance, and you don't have the ability to go to a really nice treatment center, then you need to find out, what are the funded treatment centers? What are the nonprofit treatment centers? Now, most people think, well, I don't want subpar treatment, and I hate to say it, but in some cases that might be what you get. But I've been in the treatment industry for a long time, and I can tell you right now, sometimes you pay for substandard treatment. So that is not a deterrent if you don't have money. There are great nonprofit treatment centers out there, and there is some really good state-funded treatment centers out there. There are some treatment centers who will dedicate a certain number of their beds to the state, so that when people go and they ask for help, then they can get them to that treatment center or whoever has the next bed. Typically in a large metropolitan area, there is a council on drug and alcohol abuse. Sometimes it's just called the council, sometimes it's called something else. Here in North Texas, around Dallas and Fort Worth, we call it Recovery Resources. It used to be called the Dallas Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse, and in Tarrant County, Council on Drug and Alcohol Abuse, but they merged together, Tarrant County being Fort Worth, they merged together and they just became Recovery Resources. So that when somebody in North Texas needs help, they can call Recovery Resources and they can find the help that they need. Now, they may have to wait for it for a little while, or they may go just show up at a state-funded facility. We've got one in Dallas, we've got one in Fort Worth, and they can show up and get in line, and if they're persistent, they're going to get in and they're going to get the treatment that they need. However, you may not be in Dallas or Fort Worth. You may be somewhere else. So look at your state listings, go online, find out what's available. Maybe you're in a situation where going to inpatient treatment just isn't going to be helpful. You can't leave where you're at. You're somebody's caregiver, or you just can't afford it. Then there are some other options. Now, my treatment center in Denton, Texas is a nonprofit, and there's a lot of us. There's a lot of nonprofit treatment centers, so you need to look. But there is also the ability to do online treatment. Now again, some of this is good and some of this maybe not so much. Now, I'm going to give you some information at the end of this. There's going to be some links that come up. I do have a 12-week, very intense online program. It's a addiction recovery and reintegration, because the next part of this whole situation is, just because you get sober does not mean that everything is going to work out. You may be going to 12-step meetings and getting sober and everything's working out, but you just don't know how to live within your budget, which a lot of people will say, well, what does my budget have to do with anything? Well, your budget has everything to do with everything. Because whether you make $30,000 or $130,000 a year, if you're using or you've got bad spending habits, it's not enough. The difference between $30,000 and $130,000 is that the bank is probably taking a nicer truck away from you if you don't take care of your business. Taking care of our bills, living in our budget, that's huge. And many of us didn't pay attention in school when they covered that, because we were having too much fun getting drunk or high or playing around and doing stupid things. So now we're adults and we get thrust out into the world from jail, and whether you're in treatment or you're in jail, that door swings open, the world is outside. You go outside, and if you're not prepared, we need to have a recovery program that is solid. That doesn't mean that you go to the 12-step meeting a couple of times a week and just sit there and don't do any work. It's no different than somebody who goes to church every Sunday but doesn't listen to anything they say, and they take advantage of people, and they're flipping people off before they're even out of the parking lot. And then they wonder, why is my life so unsatisfactory? Well, perhaps it's because you treat people like crap. But I go to church every Sunday and I throw money in the bucket. Okay, You don't listen to what they're telling you. A 12-step program, and there's over 200 of them. The big ones are Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Crystal Meth Anonymous, Heroin Anonymous, Drug Addicts Anonymous. There's so many, and you can find all of these online. You can go to Alcoholics Anonymous online, or Narcotics Anonymous online, or Drug Addicts Anonymous online. You can find online meetings. You can find meetings in your local area. They have a 12-step program for whatever drug or whatever process addiction or bad habit that you might have. I promise you there's a 12-step program for it, with over 200 of them, all starting from Alcoholics Anonymous. So you need to go to a recovery program, but you need to actually do the work. You need to do the work that's in the book, not just sit around and talk. You need to actually do work. See, there's people who have been going to AA or NA for years. And they sit there and they talk about themselves, what's bothering them. There's a certain therapeutic value to that, but that is not recovery. Now, sometimes somebody gets pulled over, they get a DWI, and they're told they have to go to AA, so they go and they get their paper signed. And then their little 2 or 3 year stint of going to AA is over, but now they've made a bunch of friends, and they've been sober for 3 years, and people are looking up to them, and it's a social thing, it's a fellowship, and they're enjoying it, so they stay. But maybe they were never alcoholics to begin with, but they were doing it for the core. So now they're there, and they don't really have anything to share with anybody other than, their experiences in the fellowship and funny stories. But when somebody comes to them and says, look, man, I can't do this, I can't live with it, and I can't live without it. If you can't help me, I'm going to kill myself, because I don't want to go back to jail, and I can't live like this anymore. You see, the person who hasn't actually done a recovery program has nothing to share that has any depth or weight, so it's going to accomplish nothing. But if you've got there, you went through the work, and if you just follow the directions in a book, you go through the work pretty quick. Most people are shocked, going, it ain't no race. No, it's not a race, but it will have very specific directions. Do this, and then do this. And then immediately we did this. And then we have to understand that we have to take some more action, and action on top of action. So we go through this work. And why do we do this? Well, number one, we don't drink anymore. But let's go back to the coping mechanism, and we'll answer why. If the drug and the alcohol is the greatest coping mechanism I have, in fact, it's been working so well for so long, I've had no use for any other coping mechanisms, which is why we fall completely apart. You've taken away the one thing that still works for us, and yes, it still does, because if I get high enough today, I just don't care about whatever's going on. So I know it still works. I know it's the root of all of my problems, but I know that when my problems get bad enough, it works. It's like a guy who's losing his house, his job, his family, because of his drinking, and his buddy shows up and goes, hey, you're losing all this stuff and you're drinking. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm glad you understand. And his friend says, I don't understand anything. What are you doing? He goes, all that stuff is freaking me out. It's freaking me out real bad, so that's why I'm drinking, so I can deal with it. It makes no sense to his friend and absolute sense to him. You see, it still works, so I need a new coping mechanism. And I need a coping mechanism that is more powerful than what we're using. So think about that for a minute. What is more powerful than heroin? Or cocaine, or meth, or alcohol? But when we think about the different types of drugs, heroin's pretty powerful. They're all pretty powerful. What is more powerful than heroin? It's this. Once we've worked through all 12 of our steps, we're actually living in 10, 11, and 12. Those are our maintenance steps. If you think you know 12-step and you don't know what the maintenance steps are, then the chances are you've gone to a bunch of meetings, but you've never actually been in the book for any significant period of time. But when we work through them, somebody comes to us and says, I don't want to use it anymore, and I can't stop. If you can't help me, I'm going to kill myself. You have 5 minutes. Now, most people would run from this conversation. We, recovered men and women, we run towards it. Because here's the magic answer. Here's the new coping mechanism. When somebody says that to me, and I've heard it a number of times, we look them right in the eye and go, you know what, I remember the first time I felt that way. Hell, for years my prayer was this: God, if you're real, will you just kill me tonight? Because I don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this. I don't want to spend the rest of my life incarcerated. And I can't do it. I can't live with it. I can't live without it. I just want it to end. And a person we say that to, they look at us and they're like, yes, exactly. You get it. Why aren't you high? How come you're not freaking out? Because I figured out how to stop using dope. I figured out how to stop drinking. And I'm actually happy about it. You want to know what else? I get along with my wife. And I'm looking forward to going to work tomorrow. You see, those are mind-blowing statements to somebody who is looking at the wrong end of a gun, or an open bottle of pills, or whatever method that they're going to use. Because let me tell you something, when they are that honest and they reach out to us, and they know us because we've put ourselves out there. They know that we use, they know that we don't anymore. So they are bearing their soul to us in a last-ditch effort. And they have the means and how they're going to end it all right there in the room often. They're not threatening me. They're talking about taking their own life. And then we give them that statement. And we tell them that we're happy and we're looking forward to going to work, and their mind just kind of blows, and they're like, can you show me? Because here's what they understand: we're the same. They know that I understand them more than probably anybody else has ever understood them. They want to know how I did it. And my answer is, of course I can show you. Let's get started. And then we take them into the work. See, here's the thing that just happened. We just saved a human life. We're uniquely qualified to save a human life. And whether it happens at that moment or later, it's going to settle in on us what just happened. The hair on our arms will stand up. The hair on the back of our neck. It's going to sink in, and we're going to understand, whoa, I just saved a human life. And we get to do it over and over. What is more powerful than heroin? Saving a life. Because there's nothing that we will ever do that is as important, that is meaningful. There's nothing more meaningful or powerful than saving another person. And again, we get to do it over and over. Now, usually somebody will come to me and say, my life is falling apart. It is a mess. And I'm like, it is. Can you help me? Sure I can. And then when we get through the work and then they're out helping other people, we can have that conversation about, doing this work saved your life, because here's the one thing we know about an addiction. It's going to kill every single one of us if it's left untreated. The good news is, it's so treatable. You wouldn't know that from watching television or listening to the news, because everybody talks about what a failure rate there is. But what I'm going to say to you is that most people will go to meetings and never open their book. They'll never do any work because they're afraid of, there's so many words, it's so big, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to bare my soul to anybody. But it's just a series of exercises that we're going to get through. We're going to take a good look at ourselves so that we can clean up some nonsense. And as we do that, our thought process starts to change automatically. Because if we were waiting on a day that I decided, today's the day that I'm going to stop using, or today is the day that I'm going to start treating people better, that day probably would have never come. Today is the day that I'm going to stop fighting with everybody, and I'm going to just stop being who I am. Well, I don't have that power. That day would have never, we would still be waiting for that day to happen, and I would probably be locked up or dead while we're all waiting for that day. While my parents and my siblings and my friends look at me, scratching their head, wondering what the hell is wrong with me. They're waiting for it to happen, and it just doesn't happen. I have to get through this work and get out there. And I can't have that life-saving message. I am not uniquely qualified to save somebody's life until I get to the other side. And it's actually a short trip. Now, one of the problems is people will do the work to get to the other side, but all of a sudden life starts getting good again. We get a car, we get a better job, the relationships are restored, everything's good, our family's happy with us. Things start going so well, and our life gets so busy that we have to start looking at our time that we spend doing different things because we're too busy, and we need to start cutting things. And what people usually start cutting is their recovery program, because they feel, hey, I did it, I got some time now, we're good. So not is it only my finances that I have to balance and live within, but it's my time. Because my time is just pretty much my most valuable asset. It's what I have that I can share with people. It's what I have to go out and make a living for my family. It is what I have to go out and make a difference in the world. It is what I have to go out and try to save some lives. It is what I have to give away. But the problem is, it's fleeting. There's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so many days in a week. So we have to be deliberate. And sometimes our schedule is a mess. And we think, I have no time, I have no time. Well, at our center, one of the things they have to do is a budget for their time. And they start looking at it. It's like, oh, I really do have a lot of time. Because we add up the hours. How many hours in a week? How many hours do we need to sleep? How many hours do we need to work? All of a sudden we start looking, and the person that said that they don't have any time for anything, they got 35 to 40 free hours. And it's like, what do you mean you don't have time for anything? You have plenty of time. You don't have time for recovery, and we're only asking you to carve out 3 to 6 hours a week to put towards helping other people, saving lives, going to some meetings, being a part of the fellowship. The fellowship is important, but we also have to have the program with it. You see, these are the things that we can do that we can stay clean and sober for the rest of our life. Let me tell you just a little bit about myself. I have been clean and sober since March 20th of 1995. It's been a while. I was arrested 42 times. Spent a lot of time in jail. I will tell you that I'm alive today because the Dallas Police Department and Judge Crusoe out of Dallas held my feet to the fire. They did not let up. They held my feet to the fire. I went to jail with great frequency. It destroyed my career because I kept going to jail. And it was a lot of time that I spent just sitting and saying this is part of my life. This is how it goes. And 41 times I walked out of that jail saying, I ain't never coming back here again. But the 42nd time I left, I knew I wasn't coming back. Because I knew that I was getting involved in a recovery program. And I knew that if I went to jail one more time, I was probably never going to come out again. And I didn't want to do that. So when we talk about being at the end of our rope and understanding that, I was surprised every time they let me out. Every time. And it does get to where we're comfortable. And we don't mind it so much. And all those things are true. I don't got to pay for anything. Now it's true that while I'm away, I lose everything I own. And then I got to come out and start all over again. So I became an expert at getting out and getting what I needed or what I thought I needed as quick as I could so that I could maintain some sort of life while I'm out in the free world. And I wanted to enjoy that because I knew it was going to come to an end. And so that last time that I was sitting in the jail and I realized that I had to stop. I didn't really want to stop using. I wanted to stop going to jail because I understood, see, at that moment, I was probably too stupid to realize that my career was over. But I thought if I could just stay out of jail, then I could accomplish my goals. And I knew that if I used anything, if I drank or I got high, that I was going to go back to jail because I know myself. I understand this about me. Nobody had to convince me that I had an addiction. I knew it. I didn't have to sit there and think, well, yeah, I've tried to stop and I can't, and well, I've tried to regulate the amount and I failed at it. Yeah, some of us have to answer those because we don't like the sound of addiction, or we're comparing it to somebody who's lost everything. I've lost more than a lot of people who are watching this probably will ever have lost, and I've lost less than some of the people that will watch this. That doesn't really matter. There are some people who are strong in recovery who have never been arrested. It's just started to get out of hand, and for whatever reason they decided, man, this has got to come to a stop. Now, nobody usually runs off the treatment right away because they want to stop. They think, okay, so it's time to stop. And some people can stop and walk away from it because possibly the allergy had not developed in their body. Some of us can't. With the very best of intentions. It has nothing to do with our will or having a weak moral character. It has to do with we don't know anything else to do. And it's such a part of us that when we get so stressed out, we are either going to hurt ourselves or we are going to get high. And that is what is behind every relapse. Nobody just woke up one day and said, you know what? I think I'm going to relapse today. I think I'm going to go back to jail and lose everything. Now sometimes people will find something or somebody will put dope in their hands and they're like, well, it's just the temptation was too great. This is a person who probably wasn't involved in a program. They may have been going to some meetings, but they weren't really involved in a program. Most of us know. We may not even want to say it, but we know that there is something wrong with us. Sometimes we feel it's the only way that we fit in. Sometimes we tell ourselves, well, I'm not so much addicted to the substance as I am to the lifestyle. And some people believe that's true. And in some cases, I guess it could be true. I'm not here to judge anybody on that. But the one thing I do know is if I'm addicted to the lifestyle, when I go and take part of the lifestyle, that means I'm going to start using again. So usually I think somebody's just lying to themselves or kidding themselves when they think that it's the lifestyle, not the drug. I just want to be a part of the lifestyle. Because one thing that we are genuinely terrified of is the fact that we're going to live a life without drugs or alcohol. That we're going to spend the rest of our life being bored. That life is going to suck. That we're never going to get to go do anything fun. That all fun has been taken away from us. Especially people who've been doing a lot of opiates. They feel like they can't enjoy any kind of sensation of well-being without it being artificial. Like that they've shot their sensors. That they've done too much heroin or too many pain pills or fentanyl or whatever it is that they're doing. That they've shot all their sensors and receptors and they just can't experience joy anymore. And that's true while they're detoxing. That's true for all of us while we're detoxing. But it's going to take a little time and their mind's going to start to heal. And they're going to be able to enjoy again. They're going to be able to feel. You see, some of the different drugs, meth being one of them, some people have been doing it so long that it may take a full year for their cognitive skills to all return properly, for their thoughts to settle in a little bit. And they can be well on the way to recovery. They could be working with other people before that year is up, and they should be. If somebody's been in recovery for a year and they haven't tried to help somebody else yet, they're not going somewhere to carry the message, they're not trying to sponsor people, they're not putting themselves out there so that the people who need them the most can reach out to them when they need help, then they haven't done the work yet, and they're dragging their feet and they're at risk. We only have a little bit of time before the mental obsession sets in and gets us, before everything falls apart and we just throw up our hands. We're like, you know what, screw it. Everything was better. Some people even tell us, I liked you better when you were high, because we're so irritable when we're not. You take away the one thing that works for us, and then it's just us and our irritable self and all the destruction that we've caused. And so this is a way to go through it and see it and try to make it better. And then we're going to spend the rest of our life trying to do the right thing and trying to be helpful. And then magically, we don't go to jail anymore. And I'll tell you something. Life is a lot more fun now than it used to be. It just is. And it's hard to believe that. But I don't have to sit at home and hide from the world. I'm out in the world. I don't have to not go to sporting events or concerts or big social occasions because I'm afraid of what I might see. Hell, you sit at home and watch TV, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. If you go on the internet, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. So the idea that we're going to hide from it is ludicrous. And if you are connected to somebody that I'm describing and you are trying to control what they see, where they go, what they do by maintaining their life for them, I mean, with the exception of a minor, then you need to get out of that business. And there's a lot of help for somebody who is obsessed in that, because sometimes I will talk to parents and I will say, look, this is what you need to do. you need to do these things. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, that makes so much sense. I thought that's what I should do, but now that you're telling me, you reinforce it. So, okay, we're going to do that. Some people look like you're going to vomit because the thought of not taking care of all the details, they can't not do it. They start freaking out. That's called codependency. And there's a lot of help for that. There's Al-Anon if it's for alcohol. There's all these different codependency 12-step programs that you can take part into. If you don't want to go to a codependency 12-step program, you can reach out to the local church. You can reach out to the different clinicians. The one thing our country has is we've been blessed with really gifted clinicians. Counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists, people who can help us work through the different issues. Because if you really look at what inpatient treatment is about, you bring somebody in who's been using, so they're testing positive, you get them detoxed safely, and then while they're in treatment for about 28 to 30 days, their head is clearing up, just enough that they can start getting some information. They're surrounded by counselors who can talk to them about all their stuff, because we all have stuff. And it's this stuff that adds up that runs us into the other direction, doing all the wrong things because we don't know how to deal with the stuff. And this is where we're all different, because my stuff is different than your stuff, different than her stuff, different than everybody else's stuff. Sometimes it's pretty close, but we're all different people and we've had different experiences. We look at things through a different lens. You know, you could go to an event and something happens. You talk to 3 different people who saw it through their own lens, 3 very different reactions about what just happened. So we're surrounded by these people that they're there to help us with our stuff and to let us know that, hey, when you leave here, you're not cured. You are just starting. This is not like you drop your car off and get a brake job And you go pick it up, it's like, okay, good for another 100,000 miles or however long. It's not that way. It's more like, think of a knee replacement. Because they can replace your knee, they do it in one afternoon. But then they tell you, it's like, hey, you got to do the aftercare. You got to exercise that knee. You got to get out and you got to walk on it. You have to do these things. You have to live this lifestyle. Otherwise, that new knee that we just put in you, it's going to fail. So you have to take care of it. Why is treatment any different? Because it's more like that. We send somebody to treatment, or we go to treatment, or we come out of treatment, and we're like, okay, that's done. We want to keep it a secret. We don't want to tell anybody, and we don't want to do any follow-up. We don't want to deal with anything else. We don't want anybody holding us accountable. We don't want them looking at our finances to let us know, hey, buddy, this doesn't work. We don't want anybody telling us what we should do with our time, because we feel like, hey, we're done with that. It's time to move on. So it's going to fail, just like that knee. That's as close of a similarity as I can give you. Now, if you are the family member of the person, then I want you to think about this. Would you, because sometimes families think they know best. Oh, we don't need to go to treatment. They don't need to see a counselor. They don't need no 12-step program. This is a family issue. We're going to take care of it in-house. Okay? And that might work for an awful lot of things. And I applaud you for your effort. But would you attempt doing a knee replacement on your own family member? No. Not even if you're a doctor who does knee replacements. Are you going to do it on your own family member? Because that's an ethical issue. That's not how that works. Most of us are not doctors, and we don't know how to do that. Why is this any different? Do you understand addiction? Are you licensed to treat it? Do you have experience working with people? Do you know how to get them from point A to point B? If the answer is no, then you got no business doing it. What you do have business doing is finding out as much as you can about it and getting some helpful advice from the people who can help you. So we're going to give you some resources. They're going to come up on the screen. If you are so inclined and you would like to do my 12-week program, we'd love to have you. But don't think for a second that you can't get clean and sober if you don't. It's a great fit for a lot of people, not necessarily for others. You may need to go inpatient. You may not be anywhere near where I am. Don't let that be a barrier. You need to go get help. If you follow these directions, if you just do what I'm asking you to do, then the greatest thing should be that you don't ever have to use again. But the thing that we seem to cling to is that we don't ever have to go back to jail again. Now let me ask you a question. Those of you who have been arrested, can you imagine what it would be like to get to know your arresting officer? That first thought is, oh, I don't think so, man. Well, I've been sober for all these years, and when I opened up my center, I understood that the men and women that I could help the most are in the county jail, and they're in the city jail. So I need access to them. So how do I get access? By developing a relationship with law enforcement. Because if they know who I am, and they start trusting me, and it's going to take a little while to build that trust, but if they start trusting me, then they're going to give me access to those people, or at least give them my information so that they can get a hold of me as they're coming out of our local jail, so that then I can offer them some help. Now, they may not want it, and that's fine, but if somebody tells me, I like what you're doing, but I just don't need it, then I'm going to pat them on the head and go, you know what? Maybe you're the guy or the girl who can just walk away from it. Because we know there are people like that out there. That they don't have the allergy or whatever. They can just walk away from it. maybe you're that person. I haven't really met that person yet when they were involved like you are, when they've been through the same stuff that you've been, but maybe you're that person. But if you aren't, I hope that you live long enough to come back and let me help you. Because I really want to help you. And you know, hopefully you won't need my help. But if things don't work out, and things start falling apart, and we get overwhelmed and we start using it again, please call me before everything falls apart. Now they may and they may not. I work with people who walked away from me 10 years ago. I work with people who walked away from me 2 weeks ago. I work with people who came up to me and never left. So it's about trying to be helpful and about leaving that door open. Because if I sit there and go, hey man, if you don't do what I tell you, then you're going to die. Well, I'll be the last person that person ever looks up. If they go, man, that guy's a jerk, and they leave, and they go, and they start doing their life, and things start falling apart, they're not going to think about me. I'm the last person they're going to think about. So that's not me being very helpful, is it? So if I am supposed to be helpful, and the police and the sheriff's department is in control of all of my people, my tribe, the men and women that are strung out, the men and women with an addiction. It doesn't matter their age, it doesn't matter their race, their sexual preference, it doesn't matter their religious background, none of that matters. That's my tribe. I have more in common with those people than I do with my own family. We see eye to eye, we understand each other. Doesn't mean that we all like each other. But it means we have more in common with each other. And we can find some mutual ground where we can start building trust. If I get to know the police and they know who I am and they know that I'm helpful, believe it or not, my experience shows me that the police want to see us get well. That's hard for me to believe, or it was hard for me to believe, that they actually want to see us get well. So when they see somebody that's making a difference, they start saying, hey, I've arrested this one dude like however many times, and I don't know what exactly he did, but he ain't using no more. And he actually seems to be happy about it. Do you want me to put you in touch with him? Because the police are the tip of the spear. The arresting officer is the one that sees us at our worst. And sometimes we ask for help or we say, I can't do this anymore. I can tell you that every arresting officer I ever had told me, you know, when are you going to stop doing this? Why don't you stop? Why don't you go get some help? Of course, I didn't want to hear it. Usually I'm like, F you. Don't talk to me. Just do your job. I did my job, you do your job. And they never stopped asking. And eventually, I understood that. Now here's the thing that freaks me out. Because I've been doing this for so many years, that I have a lot of friends that are in law enforcement. And some of them have an addiction. Some of them have lost their job because of their addiction. Some of them don't have an addiction, but they're tired of watching people in their community suffer and die. You see, I know something else now. I never could understand why the police were always so mad at me. They seem pissed off all the time. And I'm always thinking, what are you doing? But here's the thing. They arrest us over and over and over. And they know how it's going to end. The way it's going to end is they're going to find our body. And then they're going to go find a person who loves us the most and tell them, hey, I'm sorry, but he's never coming home again. And they got to deal with that. And that's tragic. Even if you don't like the person that you're having to go and tell their loved ones that they're dead, even if you don't care much about that person as an individual, that's heartbreaking because you're going to give them the worst news that they could possibly receive. And you have to do it over and over and over. Then they leave. They're driving down the street. They see one of us in the park. And they whip in and see what we're doing. And right away we're like, F you, what's up? Why are you hassling me? We start giving them a bunch of nonsense. And they've just had to tell somebody their kid's never coming back home. And then they come to us and we're being a smart ass. And That's why they're mad, because they know they're going to find our body. And they know that while we're alive, there's hope. So if they know you, and you've been arrested, and you've been able to reach out to your arresting officer and tell them, hey, I want to thank you for arresting me because I was pissed off at the time and it caused me a lot of grief, but you know what? It also was what I needed to leverage me into recovery, because I probably would be dead or in jail or still using had you not intervened in my life. Now, they're probably not going to trust you the first time you say that. You're going to walk up to them and go, hey, can I talk to you? And they're going to come up and just look at you. One thing you got to understand about a cop, when you're talking to them, they're hearing the words coming out of your mouth. They're looking at your eyes. They're looking at how you're dressed, how you're holding your body, how you're acting. Are you sweaty? Are you nervous? And that could just be because you're talking to a cop. But they're looking at the whole thing. Are you intoxicated? They know if you're intoxicated or not. And if you're telling them, hey, I wanted to let you know that I've been clean for 45 days. Well, they're going to see that. And I wanted to let you know that the only reason I'm here is because you arrested me, and now I'm doing this work with these guys, and I'm going to start helping other people. Or maybe it's a year or two later before you get the nerve up to go talk to them. Or maybe you don't know your arresting officer because you were passed out, or whatever reason. You just approach your local police and say, look, I've got a long history of using, but I've been clean, and I want to be helpful. And can I drop off some cards? Because I know you come into contact with people who are asking for help. I used to have these little cards. I call them Popo cards. It said, if you really want help, call. Or say, if you really want help with drinking, or with alcohol or drugs, please call. And it just had a number. It didn't have my name. It didn't have anything else. It just had that information on there. And they handed them out, and people will call. So I just got this number from the police. I'm like, excellent. Let's talk. And there's different ways to get in. Over the years, I got to know pretty much our entire law enforcement community. I got to know our judges. I got to know our prosecutors and our defense attorneys. And so I built this reputation that it doesn't matter if it's a business owner, a judge, or a cop. If one of their family members is struggling with any kind of substance abuse, they pick up the phone and call me. But in the course of the normal day, they pick up the phone and call me anyway. They're like, hey, we got somebody here. Can you come talk to them? Or can we send them to you? Sometimes the squad car pulls into my driveway and they're like, hey, I need you to meet Jeff. Now, Jeff is going to jail today, but I wanted you to meet him before we put him in because he needs to talk to you. And we were just right up the street. Normally we couldn't swing by, but we were driving right by, so I saw you outside. I just want to make sure that he has your card because I ran out. And I give him more cards, and I give the guy the card or the girl, and we move forward from that point. The police can become your biggest advocates. They want to see you get well. I found that out when I did a ride-along, because one of the captains of our local police department told me one day, he said, hey, look, if you're going to be doing treatment in our town, you need to know about the corner. I'm like, which corner? And he goes, you know, the corner. Well, he's talking about all the corners that they're slinging dope from. Society as a whole looks at the kid that's slinging dope on the corner, and we think that he is a throwaway, that is the scourge of society, that we don't need him, he doesn't serve any value, he's a detriment to our society, and they dismiss him. Even if this kid doesn't have an education, and there seems to be all kinds of things stacked against him, let's take a look at who he really is. Who he is somebody who's running a multi-million-dollar business. You see, he's got product, he's got customer acquisition, he's got customer retention, he needs to keep the supply line open for his product, he needs to turn that product, he needs to make sure there's quality control for his product if he wants to keep selling it, he's got people trying to take over his territories, he's got that competition at all times that he has to deal with, and he has a regulatory force trying to shut him down at all times. Now that's the police. They're trying to shut him down, and you look at it, yes, it's a morally corrupt business. but he's running a business. If we can dust him off and point him in the right direction and give him a little bit of help, then that's a guy or a girl who can run their own business, because they already are. We just you can't deal with the people moving in on your territories the way that maybe they have in the past, and we can't be doing something illegal, but we have all the knowledge and skills to run a business. You see, that's one of the things I know about most of us who have spent a lot of time using. We have so many different skills. When I have to be this person in front of my parents, and this person in front of the police, and this person over here, this person at work, this person in front of somebody I'm attracted to. But it's all different people. And you know, it's like, okay, he's got all these different, you know, personalities. Not that there's a mental disorder of multiple personalities, but by choice, I'm letting each person see what I want them to see and nothing else. So I have got to keep that all straight. I have got to keep all of this stuff going at all times. I am multitasking like most people will never imagine. Even though my finances are just horrific. You know, we wake up with no money and no car and no drugs, and somehow figure out how to score drugs, get there and back, and be able to do whatever it is that we wanted to do that day, even though at the beginning of the day we had nothing. And the average person will go, well, we don't have anything, so we can't do that today. And we live a lifestyle that doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. It financially doesn't work, but yet we're doing it for years. We're trying to keep this house of cards finances going and make it look like, hey, we're pulling it off. I got a place to live and a car to drive, and I've got all kinds of dope to do. We've just got this thing that's going to collapse every time. And we know it's going to collapse, especially when we go to jail for any more than 2 or 3 days. It's going to collapse. If you go away for months and months and months, it's not just collapse, but you've lost everything. Your stuff has been moved out on the corner. You can feel the day that you're in jail and everybody's picking through your drawers. You just know that your stuff is gone and you're never going to see it again. And all your little, however you left it, is put out on the sidewalk for everybody to see. And it's not a very good thought. Even though this never works. You see, the average person looks at our lifestyle and the amount of money that's coming in and the amount of money that's going out, and they're like, that ain't going to work. They're not even going to try it. But yet, we've been doing it for years, which you could say, okay, they're beating their head against the wall and it's so stupid and it just doesn't work. But when we're talking about adversity and about things happening in a workplace and there being financial difficulties, if we survive through our addiction and all that comes with that, I promise you, there's just almost nothing that life can throw at us that we can't just look at and excel through. When most people are freaking out, it's like, oh, no, you got to take care of this. Oh, no, this is bad, but you got to do this. You got to do this or that's going to happen. We instinctively know how to do this stuff. We have these skills inside of us. So I've always been a big fan of looking at the leadership skills and laws of success so that we can be successful. Because here's the one thing I know. If I'm going to buy into the fact that, well, you got a felony drug charge and you'll never have a good life, hey, there's some things I can't do, right? But there's a whole bunch of things that I can do. And nobody to say, you can't work for yourself, you can't be successful. There's a lot of companies that are willing to look at what we've done and say, yeah, we can work with you, especially if we're demonstrating the different skills that we have. But we can start our own company because most of us have been doing it already anyway. And we can be successful. I don't want to live on minimum wage because at some point I might get resentful going, I can't save money, I can't do this, I can't have a decent car, I don't live in a nice place, I have to live where I'm allowed to live. I've never been able to live in a nice apartment complex because they take one look at my record and they're like, absolutely not, get out of here. And it costs so much money. And so it's like you feel trapped. You hear that you can buy a house for less than you can rent an apartment for, but that's only if you can buy a house. And we don't even know how to get there. We can't even figure out how to buy a car after a while, other than a tote-to-note. you pay me by Friday or it'll be back on the lot by Saturday. We've lived that style forever. And we can walk through things that freak other people out. And we have all of these skills, like the kids slinging dope. We have all these skills that if just put in a different context and talked about, that we could be wildly successful. Because the better off that I do, and I'm not promising you're going to be a millionaire, but I am saying you can have a far better life than you probably thought was possible. That you can, when you need something, that you're able to get it. Maybe not just walk in cash and buy a new truck because they're expensive, but have the ability to get one. You know, our credit may be in the toilet, but it repairs itself over time. And there's very distinctive things that we can do to improve our situation. Number one, stop going to jail. Having a job so that we can live within our own means. This is hard stuff. This is the hardest part about recovery, is standing up on our own 2 feet in a community that's full of dope. And at any moment we can go, you know what, this is too hard, I gotta stop. I'm gonna screw this, I'm gonna go get high. And sometimes somebody decides, I'm going to work 100 hours a week so I can get caught back up to where I was. But you talk about resentment setting in. You spend all of your time working, no time playing, you get burned out on it. And if I'm working 100 hours a week, there ain't no time for my recovery, family, or anything else. We need balance. Our finances, our time, how we treat people. And it sounds like, well, what does that have to do with recovery? It has everything to do with recovery, because it is recovery. I mean, there's so much more that goes into working a 12-step program, but I'm going to tell you, I gave you the new coping mechanism, the end result. The rest is exercises, a series of them to get me to that point. After 42 arrests, I haven't been to jail since 1995. Since I opened up my facility, I put 14,000 men and women back to work. Now, I'm not trying to get you to come to my facility, especially if you're in a different state. Now, I'm only so big, I can only handle so many people. What I'm telling you is that you need to go get help, because there's a lot of people out there who can help you. One thing you can do is contact us if you're needing to find that help. If the other avenues I've given you haven't bore any fruit for finding a treatment center or a way to go and a way to find something, or you just really and truly don't know how to start, then reach out to us and we will get you pointed in that direction. But I'm telling you, everything is so obtainable. This going to jail, you might be full of shame right now, or just pissed off about the situation. Maybe you think it's a joke. Maybe you don't understand the impact that it will have on the rest of your life. But this is the time that we can change everything. You talk about a fresh start. This is it. This is it. This is the time for you to go and move forward and not just survive, but thrive. You see, enforcement, the police, plus recovery, you know, whether you need treatment or you just go to meetings or you need to go to a sober house or whatever, but enforcement plus recovery equals the solution. I want to thank you for giving me the time to listen to this. I hope that it's helpful. I'm a big fan of providing recovery inside of our jails. This is just a free lesson that we put out that we want everybody to watch. There's again, I run a nonprofit. I just want to be as helpful as I can. There's a lot of avenues for help. I've got a couple, but there's a lot more. Again, my name is Scott Weisenbaker. I'm going to share one last thing with you. So how do I know all of this works? That something bad can happen and we can survive? Most of us know people who have passed on. Some of us know people who have taken their own life. But we all know people who are dead from this. When I was sober for 4 years, My wife was suffering from her addiction, and she had some mental health complications. We call that co-occurring disorders. And she was seeing a bunch of different doctors, which at the time I didn't know that that was a problem. Different doctors, different prescriptions. Didn't even know what was in our house because I was never a pill guy. I didn't care for pills. I just thought that if the doctor prescribed it, then it's what belongs. And I thought doctors would never do anything that wasn't in our best interest. And most of them won't, but some of them either don't care or they don't know about how incredibly dangerous this is. They feel it's a moral issue, and if you just stop doing it, then you can stop doing it. Well, when I was sober for 4 years, she came home pregnant one day, and I thought, this is my heavenly reward for being a good boy, for being clean and sober and not breaking the law and not going to jail anymore, and helping people. I'm like, this is it. This is amazing. This is everything that was ever promised to me. I can pay my bills. I can buy a truck. I'm saving to buy a house. And now I got a kid, something I never thought that was going to happen. And she had a miscarriage and she committed suicide. And in one day, my life went to shit. It fell completely apart. And I was in absolute agony and despair. I think everybody thought I was going to use. And the sad thing is, I don't think anybody would have judged me or been mad at me if I used. You want to know how I didn't? Because I went through this work. And when I say we carve out a little time for our recovery, in this case for me, one day a week I went to this little treatment center out in East Texas. I had to drive an hour and a half to get out there every single week to go talk to men and women, many of them just coming straight out of jail, my people. And they were always pissed off. Who walk in like, what are you going to tell us? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll stay out of jail. And they're like, oh, you've been in jail. Would you get a ticket for jaywalking? You didn't pay for it? Probably. I mean, there was all kinds of tickets, and I rarely paid for them, but a few more than that. Oh, well, you done some time, huh? You've been 2 or 3 charges. 42. And they start listening, and we start talking because we start connecting. And for the first time in their life, they're hearing somebody say, one of their peers, even though we may or may not look alike, we're peers now. We're the same tribe. And I'm telling them, you don't ever have to go to jail again. In all their experiences, nobody had ever told them that before. They had always had that reinforced idea that you're going to relapse, you're going to go back to jail. And now here's somebody who's been down a path they're on as many times as them, if not more, telling them, no, that's incorrect. That's the man lying to us. The man. That's society lying to us. We can absolutely stay clean and sober. Doing that the night after my wife took her life. I didn't talk about what I was going through. We just talked about what they could experience in life. A life free from jail. Some of them actually had tears rolling down their eyes because they had never heard that before. And I'm falling apart inside. But I'm not talking about it. Now, when I left, I walked out to my truck and I fell apart. And for months, I was a mess. I went to work. I went to go carry the message. I went to my little meeting, and I went home, and I cried. And I did that for a long time, and I was angry. I was super angry. But I didn't use. And eventually, as time went on, it didn't get better, it didn't heal, it just wasn't so intense. It's been over 20 years. It still hurts. But it's bearable. It becomes a little more bearable. It also is the reason why I opened my facility, because I decided to look at the stats to see how many of us take our own lives. And it's outstanding how many people take their own lives. It's horrific. And so I thought, so I'm gonna get a house and keep 10 guys out of the ground. I was thinking very small. Things have gotten much bigger and changed since that original thought. But I've been doing it ever since. I am a big fan of providing these types of lessons in our jails. But you don't have to do my program to get well. You just have to get through the work and follow the instructions that I've told you. Thank you so much. I hope this is helpful. I hope this is the last time that you ever go to jail because you decided to take my advice and that life changes from this point. So, good luck. Thank you.
Guilty by the reason